took him out. And he kept calling and asking. He was like, I need $20. I need $20. I was like, Daddy, I just gave you some money. Like, what do you need the money for? Where'd the money go? I need $20. I'm trying to flip it. I'm like, you trying to flip it? He was like, yeah, I'm trying to flip it. I need $20. And I was like, what in the world are you talking about? So, like, he was very adamant, and we lived in a gated community at the time. And he made his way over to the apartment, and I remember driving up to the gate to meet him, and I could see it in his face that he was high. And that, when I say that broke my heart, I was like, this shit is real. Are you fucking kidding me? This is real. And I could see in his eyes, they were like kind of big, but they were like glossy and red, and just his conversation with me, and I'm just looking at him, and he was like, baby, I need the money. And I'm just like, oh shit, this is happening right now. I'm like really faced with this shit. And I just remember crying, like, you don't need to flip the money. I got you. Like, what do you need? You don't need to do that. And that's the first time he's ever seen me cry, outside of me being, a little girl who may have fallen and scraped her knees.
What was his reaction?
He just, he looked at me, and he was torn, and on the inside, because it was like, okay, I see my oldest, as he calls me, his first love. Like, I see her, crying because this is hurting her, but yet at the same time, I got to get my fix. So, sorry, not sorry. That type of thing. That's how I felt. Sorry, not sorry. Sorry that I got to do this, I'm doing this to you, but I got to go, I'm fiending right now. So, gave him the money, and he left. And I think that was one of the last times I saw him, I think.
So he chose the drugs over you that time, and
No, he chose the drugs over me every time.
Was that the first time you knew that's what he was doing?
No. Yeah. That was the first time I knew what he was doing. Yeah.
And so every time after that was different than this time, because this time you had to deal with the acceptance of that.
Exactly. And so I knew accepting the fact, with the abandonment and so on and so forth, then it kind of all started making sense to me, going back as a little girl, why he wasn't present. Like, it all, like, just started coming to me like, oh, that's why he wasn't there. That's why he didn't show up. Because, he had a problem.
And so was that the last time that he came to live with you or to be around you in a living situation?
Yeah.
Okay. So that was the third time, right?
I think that was the second time, because like I said, the first time I brought him out twice. The first time he lived with me, and the second time he ended up living with my sister Clover, and then ended up moving in with some other addicts, I guess.
Okay. So where or how was your relationship with Joe was it during the first time that he came or the second time that he came?
Oh, me and Joe were done at that point.
Well, I remember you saying that one time you were having some issues with him.
Oh, my bad. Because it's Joe and Joseph. Joe, okay, got you.
Yeah.
Okay.
So was it the second time that your relationship was having trouble with Joe?
It was the first time, because I remember having some, wanting to spend time with Joe and wanting him to come and hang out with me and just be there. And he couldn't, and he was like, I can't. But he said, because your daddy's there. And, I'm going to have problems with him because I know what you're going through. and that's just not going to be a good look. And I was like, screw all the other shit. I need you right now. And he couldn't get past, the BS.
So you were being neglected or abandoned emotionally by your father and by the person that you were leaning to make you feel better.
Mhm.
So that must have been a tough period. How did you navigate your way through it?
As I always do, deal with it, accept it for what it is, and keep it moving. Because I believe at that point, I just walked away from that relationship, and then had to send put Pops back on the train and get his ass up out because it was just too much stress.
Mm. Did you realize the correlation back then?
No.
Hold on 1 second, okay?
Mhm.
Hello?
Mhm.
Yeah, I don't know who that was. I said hello and no one answered. You have like 5 seconds when I say hello to say hello. Bye.
Right? You don't respond. It's like, oh, well.
That's a wrap.
That means to me it's like either you don't want to talk or you're
not paying attention.
Or they're a telemarketer.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
That's how I look at it. Like, if you're not responding right away, you must be a telemarketer. You got to wait for that phone call to kick in.
Mhm. Yep. All right. So I think I was asking if
the correlation between and I didn't.
at the time. Okay. So it's like you were just running from a frying pan and running into a fire.
Mhm. And the crazy part about it is it wasn't until after the fact that I realized the two of them were very much alike.
Okay.
In looks, attitude, I was like, damn, I just started dating Byron Walker. Didn't even know it, minus the addiction to drugs.
So did you normalize the inconsistency in your relationship with Joe?
I guess explain that, how you mean that.
Because you know how with Byron you said that the one consistent thing about him was his inconsistency?
Mhm.
So was Joe's inconsistency consistent?
Yeah. Told you I was dating my daddy. I had no idea I was doing that.
And when did you first realize that?
2015, probably early 2000.
What made you realize?
When I realized that all the times I've been saying I don't want to date anybody like my daddy, and I look back and I'm like, damn, I'm dating everybody like my daddy. I'm like, shit. That's why I ended up with Sherman, because I thought I was doing something different. Because the guys that I was attracted to, I'm still attracted to, brown-skinned men who are football player bodies, chiseled abs, thighs, ass, arms. They end up being mouthy gym rats because my daddy's a gym rat. My daddy works out even at 64 consistently when he's not in pain. Something's not happening to his body.
But do you think they have the inconsistency in common?
Yeah. I think that, yeah, I do. I do. I think the consistency with being, let's see. Yeah, with Joe, he was inconsistent, when it came to calling. Consistent with being consistent when it came to calling. Damon, let me see, with Damon, his consistency was really not being able to, what was Damon's? Would I say he was consistent with being inconsistent? I don't know that Damon was consistent with being inconsistent. And I try not to think about him too much.
Okay. So let me ask you, if there is a pattern of you accepting inconsistency, what is the inconsistent pattern with Greg?
The inconsistent pattern with Greg. That's a good question. I don't know that he's been inconsistent consistently.
Well, would you say that his limited availability would be considered inconsistent in terms of what you may need and what he's able to give?
Looking at it like that, yeah.
So if we know that if we pick 10 purses, there's going to be a red dot on every single one of them, and we pick the 11th purse, we automatically start looking for the red dot, right?
Right.
So if we know that there's a certain habit or we have to normalize a certain level of inconsistency, then it's very likely that you have normalized the inconsistency. Even though you've accepted the inconsistency, it's still the same pattern, just not as emotionally toxic as the other situation, but still the same pattern.
I can see that. I can definitely see that. I'm just trying to figure out what it would be. And then him not being able to be available, and that could be the consistent part. Like you said, is he showed up when he could show up.
Right. So he could be consistent in his unavailability at times.
Yeah. But that he was consistent with.
Yeah.
Because
but you still
if he could be available, he was available. If he wasn't, he wasn't.
Right. But you still pick a certain level of inconsistency, even on the other side of the spectrum where it's a more positive experience for you. You're still picking that unavailability.
Damn, Adina. Yeah.
So beyond the inconsistency, you pick men that are emotionally or somehow physically or, I don't know, time-wise unavailable.
They resemble my daddy. They're not, emotionally, they're not present to win. And let's see, they resemble him to a certain degree. Yeah, I dated Byron Walker.
So I know sometimes you try to take Greg out of that pool, but you realize
he's in it.
Okay.
I know he's in it.
So if you are picking people that is emotionally unavailable, do you think a part of that could be because you are emotionally unavailable? And if you picked someone that was emotionally available, that could challenge you to be emotionally available, and you may not want to be?
There you go. Because I don't know what being emotionally available is about. I've not ever had really an example of that.
Okay. So is that something you want to continue, or is that something you want to try to change?
I don't mind trying something new. Like, stopping the insanity. But right now, it will serve me good. It's keeping my ass where I'm at. Just, until I figure out my own mess. It's best to just,